Hello and welcome to the Omnex webinar. Today's presentations are being conducted by various presenters. Michael Checketts is starting out the day today. Hello and welcome to the Omnex conference, Changes to Medical Device Standards. The first presentation today is on FDA's proposed changes to 21 CFR 820. 21 CFR 820 contains the FDA's requirements for quality management systems. These requirements have been around for a long time. Circa 1978, FDA is now proposing to amend the regulation to align more closely with QMS requirements used in other global regulatory authorities. Today's first presentation is being conducted by Michael Checketts. Michael Checketts is an Omnex representative for TC 210 for medical devices. He is a 40-year veteran of the medical device industry, working with both OEMs and first-tier suppliers. He has managed operations, engineering, and QA/RA functions for both startup and legacy manufacturers. Michael has shown proficiency in ISO 9001, 13485, ISO 14001, 14971, 17025, 62304, and of course 21 CFR 820. All right, Michael, you can share your screen and start your portion of the webinar.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. As Miles stated, we're going to be talking on this presentation adopting the ISO 13485 to 21 CFR 820. So since we might have some newcomers, I figured we'd better start with what is 21 CFR 820. An explanation of the law is that CFR is a Code of Federal Regulations, which is law in the United States. Title 21 refers to the section that handles foods, and Part 820 is one part of the Title 21, which talks about quality system regulations. QSR also includes quality management systems for medical devices and CGMP, which is current good manufacturing practices. Other parts not included in 820 and unaffected by this change include items like electronic records, signature, device reporting, device labeling, device classification, and right now there are about 200 device or parts to the CFR 820 or parts to the Code of Federal Regulations dealing with devices, and has capabilities up to 1,000 titles. So if you want to know more about this or want to get a concise listing, go to the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations on the FDA.gov website. Why change 21 CFR 820? As Miles' introduction explained, the CFR has been around, 820 has been around since 78. The only significant changes in the law has been were made in 1996. So the hope is that these amendments will align to international requirements, and ISO 13485 will be incorporated by reference into CFR 820. I'll explain a little bit more about that incorporated by reference in a subsequent. This will also provide or promote worldwide consistency, and the expectation is a quicker introduction for safe, effective, and high-quality devices for patients. The goals of the proposed QMS regulation is to simplify or streamline the regulation. It will reduce burden on manufacturers by aligning FDA's requirements with global requirements so that you don't have to learn 3 and 4 and 5 different quality management systems. Harmonizes with 13485, of course, which all other countries use as 1345 is the base requirements to get in marketing in most countries. Let's see, this also will incorporate 1345 to keep country-specific requirements at a minimum so that you're not worried about the Canadian rules, the EU rules, the rules of other countries, because all these countries consider 13485 as their go-to quality management system. We'll also maintain a level of assurance in a firm's quality management system. Be consistent with your safe. The significant change to us in the U.S. is that currently ISO certification is not required to start a 510K. Unlike Canada or the EU, to apply for a CE mark or marketing in Canada, you must have a certification to even begin talking. So I expect the U.S. may follow in their footsteps. Part 820 will become, the name of 820 will no longer be the Quality Management System or QSRs. It will become the QMSR, which is Quality Management System Regulation. Also, clarification is a good one in that quality is clarified as a verb of describing the management system, not a noun for the department responsible for the system. The structure of the proposed QMSR is outlined here. It's much simpler than what it has been. Talks about scope, definitions, incorporation by reference. It's explained in 820.7 pretty well. The requirements for a quality management system are in paragraph 10, paragraph 15, clarification of concepts, 35, control of records, and 45, labeling and packaging control. The QMSR does not modify which establishments or products are subject to 820. That will stay constant. It incorporates 2016 version of 13485. Moving forward, the changes to 1345 will have to be handled separately or as they come up. A transition period of about 1 year after publication of the final rule is expected. 485 2016, if you don't have copies of that, it is available at the ANSI portal. This is the website here, https://IBR incorporated by reference.ansi.org. It is a read-only website, so you can get it, but you won't be able to copy. Another interesting thing is the FDA will retain their inspectional authority. In other words, FDA inspections, when they come, if they do, will not certify you to conformance or compliance to 13485. However, if you get a certificate to 13485, does not exempt you from FDA inspections. We'll always have FDA inspections for cause. They can drop by anytime, any place, or, of course, for your convenience. Here's a summary of the proposed rule differences. This is right out of their proposal document that they have. It's not intended to be a requirement by requirement analysis, but just subparts, clauses of the standard and QS regulation for reference only. While there are differences specifically identified in subpart D, document requirements exist in most subparts and clauses of the and the QS regulation. We have a few new terms or definitions in the standard, the 1345, that haven't been there. Blood and blood components is an added and subject to subpart F, ID and traceability. Human cells and tissue-based products are, it's added here mostly for reference because of part 1271 of the CFR covers that quite well, so it is just a reference. And conflicts, if any, arise between any of the subject matter of 1345 and parts 820 or different parts of 820, the FDA regulations will override or control the conflict. So, and that includes conflicts or issues with foreign manufacturers. They will need to comply to the FDA version, Part 820, rather than just the 35. Another interesting thing here is that any manufacturer may petition for an exemption on various or some requirement by using this form 520F. I think that's also currently used in the 21 CFR Part 820 currently, so that will continue. Definitions of ISO 1345 are accepted. However, there are some that are not appearing there, and they are, it's kind of interesting. We have a few that you would expect to be at 1345, but are not. They're in 820. Component, it lists the different types or definitions of those. Customer, who different customers are, persons, organizations, users, product or service. Design validation, it clarifies design validation as specifications conforming to user needs and intended uses. Definitions for product and manufacturer are part of the ISO 1345, but are only clarified in Part 820 for use. We have the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act as a new. Many of you will know what that is. Finished device. Interesting because it's not covered by 13485. Any device or accessory suitable for use or capable of functioning, whether or not it is packaged, labeled, or sterilized. You need to be careful recognizing that any imports that are coming into the U.S., it is good to make sure the device listing is included in the packaging or the packing list of those shipping documents. If not, they will be quarantined as possible use or as a finished device. Nonconformity is a new definition. Process agent, any substances that might need subsequent cleaning so that it can be utilized. Things like shoot, what am I trying to say here? Issues like cleaning agents or release agents that should move before they're sterilized. Process validation, establishing that a process consistently meets predetermined specifications. That is not in 45 current. Remanufacture includes everything that is considered for remanufacturing, significantly changing the finished device's performance or not. By the way, there's a new standard or a new guidance document just released on that. Rework, any action taken to non-conforming product so that it'll fulfill specified requirements. Top management and verification, specified requirements fulfilled. A lot of people have confusion over verification, validation, and that is clarified better than it is. Okay, starting with the document itself in paragraph 10, requirements for quality management system. Manufacturer must document a quality management system that complies with 13485. It must comply as appropriate with other applicable regulatory requirements in this title, which title is 20 or 820. So it needs to cover both. A couple of those clauses, for example, clause 758, identification, the UDI in accordance with part 830 describes what that unique device identification has to meet. 7591 for traceability. You must have the traceability in accordance with 1345 and part 821, which is the medical device tracking requirement. Clause 823, which is reporting to regulatory authorities. The part 803 with in the CFR is the medical device reporting requirements. There are a little bit different requirements for some of these, so they are referenced. Clauses 723, 823, and 833 need to be handled in accordance with part 806. Medical devices reports on corrective actions. Part item C here, manufacturers of class 2 and class 3 and those class 1 devices identified below need to comply with the requirements of clause 7.3, which is design development. The class 1 devices that need to comply are those with computer software and those 5 or 6 I've listed down here as a device. Catheters, gloves, radionuclides, etc. Okay, part D, or paragraph D. Devices that support or sustain life if the device fails to perform when properly used it is reasonable to expect significant injury. Compliance to 7592 is expected. That is particular requirements for implantable medical. Enforcement, if there's a failure and it renders the device adulterated, such a device, as well as any person responsible for that failure, is subject to regulatory action. So that definitely puts this compliance as opposed to conformance, so that signed or subject to litigation areas are not complied with. Paragraph 15, manufacturer subject to the following terms in 13485. Organization is equivalent to manufacturers. Safety and performance, it means that effectiveness is not in 13485. Safety and effectiveness is very important as far as Part 820 is concerned. So the phrase safety and performance does not relieve a manufacturer from any obligation to implement controls assuring safety and efficacy. Validation of processes equals process validation. The clarification of paragraphs 20 through 30, which are management responsibility, 22 being quality audits or internal audits, 25 being personnel, and 30 being design controls. These paragraphs are no longer in Part 820. They're leaving, they're referring to 13485 because it, in addition to Clause 425 requirements in under control of records, that's paragraph 35, need to obtain signatures for each individual approving or reapproving records and the date of such approval. Include in that, in paragraph A below that, Clause 822, at a minimum, you need to record the device name, date, identification, name, address, and phone number of the complaining person, nature and details of the complaint, corrective action taken, and replies or responses to that complaint. This includes reporting of complaints as per Part 803 in the Code of Federal. Okay, control of records continued. Paragraph B, records of servicing activity. In accordance with 4, you need to record the following information at a minimum: device name, identification, date of service, name of the person who performed the service, what service, and any test and inspection data that becomes part of that service. Also, I might caution to make sure that if the service is done outside of the servicing requirements in your process documents, like, for example, if the service is done out of sequence for whatever reason, you need to make sure that you include that reason. Otherwise, it's non-compliant. Paragraph C has to do with UDI. In addition to clauses 751, 58, and 59, the UDI must be recorded for each device or batch according to Part 830 in the CFR. Confidentiality, You may be able to, you may mark anything that is deemed confidential to aid the FDA in determining what they can disclose and what they can't. This is, you'll have to remember that anything to do with the FDA is, for freedom of information can be disclosed and is available under the FDA.gov. So this is your protection of privacy according to Part 20 of the CFR. So make sure you include that, or you're aware of that. Paragraph 40 is reserved. Previously, that was document controls. Again, it's not used in Part 820 because it's a redundant. Paragraph 45, device labeling and packaging controls. In addition to 7.5, detail the activities ensuring integrity, inspection, storage, operations for labeling and packaging. You need to ensure the packaging and labeling is examined for accuracy prior to release. So you need to include at a minimum the following: the identification date, storage instructions, handling instructions, and any additional processing needs. Paragraph B, release of labeling for use must be documented according to 4.2.5 for control of records. Device labeling packaging continued. Part C here is to ensure that labeling operations prevent errors. Need to make sure it includes but not limited to inspections or use to ensure all devices are correct. This inspection must be documented per 4.2.5. Parts C through O. That's a lot of paragraphs. Now deleted from CFR 820, again for the same reasons. They are redundant to what is in 13485. That is a summary of all the changes to CFR 820. So what we're going to do now is take a look at what are some of the pros and cons of these changes by reference. Like I mentioned, 13485 is referenced in Part 820. This, one of the pros for that is to enable the FDA to globally harmonize without completely rewriting or changing the Federal Register whenever 13485 changes. Disadvantage of that is that if either standard changes, presently there is no vehicle in place for synchronizing the update to and approval of each of them. That's got to be worked out. Another positive is that U.S. medical device standards will stay current with global regulatory expectations. Changes in 13485, there won't be a scurrying about to update the Part 820. They'll be able to allow a period of time to react. Disadvantage of that is that Part 820 is available free for use from FDA.gov, whereas 13485 is available at or in view only mode through this ANSI website. We need to thank recognize that this was put together by Kim Troutman of the FDA. And so what's next? We have the last milestone was a completion of the 90-day public comment period, which concluded in May of this year. And it's kind of in limbo right now because the FDA needs to go through all those comments and sort them out. And so we're in a waiting period now for the FDA to publish their next proposed edition. And it is indicated that that should be in Q4 of this year. However, the FDA is being kind of holding that date close to their vest, particularly because they don't really know what's going to be. So it's just a waiting game right now. To help you understand what that is, a few of the comments or questions from industry prior to that conclusion in May of before May was a deliberate rollout is preferred. So the industry people really want a well-established series of dates and guidance documents to help bring all these changes forward. Implementation, as I mentioned earlier, will be at least a year from published dates. There are requests out there for a 2- and 3-year transition. May cause a few problems with some of the QSIT issues for the quality system inspection guides that are currently in place. So that's going to have to be written for the approach. Guidance documents for risk management. Those unfamiliar with 1345, the third method in 1345 is ISO 14971. I assume that they will stick with that and recommend 14971 as a risk management plan or risk management system. So we will have to wait to see what the FDA is going. And last but not least is 1345 going to be a requirement in order to obtain a 510K, like it is in Canada or the Europe. If anybody wants to find out any of the further details from this, you can go to this fda.gov website and use media/1540 and download and proposal that. Another little sidebar here on changes. There are a few FDA guidance documents which have recently been released that you might have an interest in. There's a final guidance document for remanufacturing medical devices, a final guidance document for submission recommendations for a predetermined change control plan for artificial intelligence and learning enabled device software. That final guidance, by the way, was just released or published Friday. There is a draft guidance that is recently published for the AI machine learning enabled device software functions, which life cycle management very similar to 62304, and it also entails pre-market so that will be an interesting read for a lot of those doing software and machine learning. Other standard changes include the ISO 13485. When is that going to be? We've been anticipating that since about 2020. I decided not to make the change. I don't expect to see that change until the implementation of 21.820. Potentially, a couple of the issues that we'll address level structure of other ISOs, as well as taking the 853 clause of preventive action and move to the front of the standard where it will be a criteria adopted throughout all clauses since they are all preventive. But whether or not this happens will be a year or two before we see. Just recently, as a matter of fact, Friday, we had a meeting last week on AAMI has written up a addendum or an annex for 14971 to update their machine learning. Undecided whether it will be an annex or a guidance document titled 34971, but that was submitted to ANSA in our hands to decide whether it will be, part of 24971, or as a separate document. So we're in a holding pattern on that. That concludes anything I have. We're about out of time, so look and see if we have any questions. Okay, yes, we did have 2 or 3 questions. How will the FDA integrate 13485 without making every time 13485 does? That's a cons that we talked about, and the FDA brought them up through Kim Troutman. The vehicle hasn't been identified yet, and so if 13485 changes, going to be part of 820, so we're going to live with that until the FDA comes out with. However, they might have a vehicle as part of this release. Are there any updates to 13485 on the horizon? Pretty much just what I read. There are no changes that I'm aware of for 13485. That everybody's chomping at the holding pattern to see what it does with Part 8. Third one, how does FDA usually interface with device manufacturers? As many of you probably know, the typical way is every manufacturer is subject to inspections every couple of years, and that's patient, but it hasn't routinely happened as expected. That's one of the main reasons that's driving the FDA to make this change. They can use the certified bodies out there to do all those routine inspections or audits. They will be submitted or available to the FDA to do at their request. Won't need to go out every couple of years. Nothing has changed as regarding for cause audits. As is, when there's a problem out there, recalls, that sort of thing, they will that about does it. So, we appreciate your attendance here, and we, are going to make a quick change in just a moment, so, we'll, hold for a couple of minutes